My name is Ivan Sygoda. I've been in this business for about 40 years. Most of it was a New York-based service organization called Pentacle, which I co-founded as a service organization that delivers various kinds of infrastructure support to dance companies and also booking services. So it's in that capacity that I've been coming to the Performing Arts Exchange for at least 38 years, from way back when it was at Colony Square. So I'm an old hand at this, but I transitioned out of being an agent and working the resource room about 3 years ago when I semi-retired from that organization called Pentacle.
So, as a highly respected and awarded member of this community, what advice would you give to a young agent manager, aspiring agent manager, about to think about entering this profession? What's important for them to know and think about and sort of value as they try to come in and make this their life's career?
Well, my first question would be, what are you aspiring to? It could be fame and fortune and power, like the biggest wheeler dealer, and every artist wants to be represented by you because you're as powerful as Swifty Lazar, one of those legendary ones. Or it could be you're committed to an art form or an artist and are passionate about helping that career along, which is more like a marriage, and it's in some ways more self-effacing. So I made a commitment. First of all, I might add, I did not have arts administration training. I came to this from being a French language and literature teacher. And when you're reading a novel like Flaubert or something, and studying it in school, it can't be just a good read. You've got to interrogate the text. What's going on here? How did it get put together? What's behind it? And I brought that training to my own self-taught dance watching. What's that choreographer doing? How is it put together? I was never a dancer, so I can't say, oh, they did 3 entrechat and then a tour de whatever. What's on their mind? How is it strung together, and how does it work on me, the viewer? And so that was very empowering to give myself the authority to I didn't have to wait for Anna Kisselkoff of the Times to tell me what the piece was. I didn't even have to wait for the choreographer to tell me what they thought the piece was. I could make my own decision because I empowered myself to be a proactive viewer. So that gave me resources. I remember in the early years in the business, I was very timid because I don't know how to dance. I never danced. I don't know the names of the steps. So I actually took some dance classes and I learned the names of the steps. For instance, there's a thing called a pas de chat. You go see Cats, you see a lot of them on stage. But then I realized that doesn't explain, I know it's called a pas de chat, it doesn't explain why any choreographer in their right mind would ever put one anywhere in a piece. It didn't help, it didn't explain anything. So all of a sudden I said, well, I'm an audience, not an artist. And the audience is an important part of the equation. And the piece is mine once it crosses the footlights, and they better hope that I'm kind. Was it a line from a play? Years from now when you talk about this, and you will, be kind. They better hope I'm kind when I remember a piece I've seen that I valued in one way or another. But that makes me better able to be an advocate for the artist, because I'm more believable when I'm saying what's on my mind about it than trying to read from a script of what either the critic or the choreographer said I'm supposed to say about the piece.
You really did in your own work, and evidently feel an agent and manager should do in their own work, get to know the art form they're going to represent intimately well and be conversant or comfortable in evaluating it on their own terms?
Okay, to me it's more important. The art form is such a generality, and I don't want to have that interpreted as an indication to become a scholar. It's not about reading the history of dance and learning who did what to whom. It's about really engaging in the work of a particular artist and digging into that. And you use the word comfortable. I think the idea is you have to keep pushing a bit beyond comfort. Because if it's comfortable, you've closed the book, you've stopped learning, you've stopped watching, and it stays static. But the best artists are always changing and developing. So when I have dialogues with artists, and I value them, nothing keeps me younger than having, a constant conversation with these vital, strange, wonderful, special people. I'm the luckiest person on earth. Feeds me. I feel like a vampire. I'm sucking your artist's blood, and it's wonderful. And I'm always, sometimes with some of the artists I work closest with, I kind of reframe what they've told me they do, because eventually I'm going to do a grant application or a press release or something. And at the beginning I got frustrated because they would always correct it. But I realized what was happening is I got it down right, but that process helped them move along, and it was a dialectic. They were not correcting me, but they were giving me the version that grew from that. And I would take that and it would be zigzagging and keep going after the premiere. So that in retrospect, the piece was something more meaningful, differently meaningful than what we said it was in the grant proposal or in the press release that it was done at the time of the premiere. And that to me is an exciting living process. And as I said, keeps me young.
But if I'm not mistaken, you focused on representing dancers.
Well, choreographers.
Choreographers.
Okay, I'll tell you a funny story. Our Pentacles constituency, and my expertise, if you want to call it that, or enthusiasm, is about what we call the single choreographer companies, which is jargon for the companies where an artistic director imposes their vision on the whole thing, which is different from the Orlando Repertory Ballet Company, which comes from a different place. So I was trying to explain to my aged mother what I actually do for a living, and I said, I work with these single choreographer companies. And she immediately said, what's the matter, aren't they married? Which is a sign that we have gotten ourselves in a pretty esoteric, inside bubble. And that's a problem, because as it is, dance is a difficult sell for audiences who have no experience of abstraction in the arts. They have no diffusing experience in school. It's just strange and weird and threatening, because no one likes to feel dumb. I don't get it, Irene, what are they doing? That's not a way to build audiences, so we have to demystify the art form, humanize the choreographers, but not mask the problematics and the complexities of what they're doing.
But would you, if you were still actively running an arts management agency, would you be willing to take on, let's say, a string quartet?
Well, some of what I know how to do is a little bit independent of the art form. I know how to read art or sort of read behind or under what a company might be doing and give it some sort of context in words. The problem is, well, these days, one reason I'm glad, first of all, a lot of my presenter friends are retiring. I'm 73, some of them are getting on there, so all of a sudden I don't know all the people I used to know. So I'm not the big deal I once maybe was. So I don't have some of those connections, and because I retired, I've stopped going to all the conferences. I come to this one because of the DTI initiative, and every year I come, oh, where's so-and-so? They retired, they're not there, they left the agency. It's about a communication business, and if you don't know the people and have a trust relationship with them, where are you going to start? As it is, you may have a new artist who you're learning to talk about, and then a presenter who doesn't know you from Adam. That's plus, I never got into Facebook and stuff, and the means of communication these days are so much different than they used to be. I remember actually typing letters and licking stamps and communicating with people that way. Then I remember the first time we got a fax. Ooh, Then first time I got a word processor. We were doing inter-office memos in Old English because we could. That wore off real fast. And I realized that, Shakespeare was pretty brilliant with his quill pen, and just because I'm using Facebook, I'm not particularly smart necessarily. It's what is the message, not, but I'm not on Facebook and stuff, so I'm not where the market is in terms of communication. So I'm content to be helping in this way. I'm not working the resource room in the same old way. Plus, the world has changed. The budgets, the arts are not fitting in the way they once were. They're not as integral to education as they should be. Budgets have been cut everywhere. That's a whole different 5-hour interview about how that's happening and why and where. So it makes it difficult. I think you asked me, maybe I'll ask you, how has the field changed in these 40 years? Well, it's always been sucky. The artists who are pushing the envelope have always been in the difficult end of the pool or something, where the currents are more dangerous or whatever. So that hasn't changed at all. Some of the artists we work with are now world famous, and they've gone on to the big alphabet letter agencies, CAMI and ICM and all that. And I was very sensitive for a while. I said, we're such a failure, they keep leaving us. And someone said, you're an incubator, it's supposed to happen. Then I had a word and I was very happy.
Do you think an agent can creditably, successfully do justice to an artist whose type of product, whether it's dance, popular music, a cappella, classical, quartet, whatever it is, they really, as an agent, they really don't understand all that well. They can't evaluate it themselves. They're just the front face of it, but it's
well, I mean, you've got to have your own. You don't have to have a scholarly understanding of either the art form or the work, but you have to have your understanding of it. It's something you can communicate and has its own coherence. I can tell you stories when, the 5-minute, what are you going to do when you have 30 seconds to talk about an artist? You have to distill things. So I remember one choreographer I was working with, and I had it distilled to a kind of juicy muscularity. It was an image, it fit, it wasn't wrong, it wasn't a lie. And there had been a presenter, she was in the office and there was a presenter I'd been trying to reach for 2 weeks. I finally returned the call. I said, I can't say I'll call it back later because it would be another 3 months before I got to talk to her. I said, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet, I'm going to do my little pitch. And it was clear that I was talking to that woman on the phone about that choreographer sitting there. And she sort of giggled when it was over. And God bless her, she understood what I was doing and why. She didn't say, you idiot, how can you reduce me to that gibberish? No, she said, I understand how you're doing your job by keeping a channel open. I love her forever. I'm grateful for that. But sometimes you have to do that. But it's your understanding of the work. We are very good at getting snobby and elitist about it also. I've been known to use the work with a capital W. What's important is the artist's work. So if I remember being at a conference, somebody came up and said, tell me about your act. I mean, that's just a vocabulary from a different part of the field. What's your show like? We don't do shows, we make art with a capital A. I'm exaggerating, but there's a difference in spirit there and a possibility of miscommunication. Because there are people who are quite legitimately looking for the next act because they have to fill a 2,000-seat house and all that, and my art ain't going to do it for them. So we have to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So it's all about communication and forthrightness.